I am Laura Copeland. I'm one of the product managers at Redgate Software. I'm here today with Grant.
So Laura's actually a smart person. I work for the marketing team. Um, this is our contact information. If you want to get in touch with us after today, please do reach out. So with that, go ahead.
Yeah, happy to. As we all know, there's more and more data in the world every day. It is nonstop, frankly, and that means our database estates are also getting more and more complex. As little as 10 years ago, the standard for the database estate was a single monolithic, database type, whether that was SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, Postgres even. You had one type and that was your one and done. But nowadays, that's not the case. More and more, we're seeing that companies are really picking up different database types, experimenting. But that's not easy for the people who have to actually manage and deal with the databases. So we're going to take a look at our State of the Database Landscape Survey and see how the world has changed and give you a bit of a solution too.
And the first thing that we know is that the cloud's a thing. It's real now. And so 80%, now it says 80% are planned to migrate to the cloud. It's not, that number and that sentence are not quite accurate. What it is 80% are already 100% on the cloud, are in a hybrid situation, or are looking to move to the cloud. And the other 20% are probably lying or slow. Because this is a real thing, right? Everybody's looking at it. Even people who've got a massive investment in hard iron, huge data centers that they maintain and run themselves have got the HR department or somebody else is also running a cloud service. It's absolutely a part of everybody's life these days. So that, again, that 80% is probably not entirely accurate.
And just like that, more than 72% of data professionals are now managing databases on more than one platform. So the HR department is still on-prem, somewhere in a closet. They've got things on cloud, and it's getting harder and harder to see your entire estate. So you wake up in the morning, and you have to go and check every single platform to see what's going on.
And, this is kind of exciting for me because I'm starting to learn it. Well, I've been starting to learn it for a couple of years, but 50% of people are using at least one Postgres environment, which is pretty wild. It's coming up everywhere. Developers love it. For good or for ill, it's a thing, and it's growing like crazy.
When it comes to why people are adopting this, like we said, developers, experimental, lots of ideas, so many ideas. And can you maintain that for us? The top 3 reasons that we're seeing for people to adopt these multi-platform environments is one, the flexibility, especially when it comes to moving to cloud, different use cases for different database types. Maybe you want an experiment and you don't want to pay for more SQL Server, as well as saving costs. So making it more flexible, pay as much as you need instead of just the only option you have.
And so the challenges, the things that we're hitting, and please, I'm gonna ask you, because I just testing reality, the stuff we're hitting is obviously an increased complexity. Anybody who's at the keynote today, we saw this wild new stuff coming out from Microsoft. Is anyone having to manage more and more things that are harder to understand and more difficult for you to do? A few hands, cool. And because of that, you've got to have a better skill set. Now, you're in the right place for that because this is where you go to learn. But we've got to be able to have those learning abilities. We've got to have that training. We've got to have that skill set. And who feels like that, their imposter syndrome has increased in the last year? Mine has, for sure. Okay, cool. Most of the room. That's not shocking. And the other challenge is because we've got all of these platforms on different versions in different places, some in the cloud, some local, we're having a hard time understanding what's going on with them and then troubleshooting when things go wrong. Is that reflecting reality for anyone else in the audience? About half. Cool. That's not bad. So, it really is a thing. So it's cool.
One of the other things that we asked in our State of the Database Landscape Survey was, when it comes to the tools that you already have and you already use, which ones do you wish actually supported that multi-platform, multi-database environment that we have? Because not all tools are evolving at the same rate. And we had 4 main answers that people came back with. The first was database migration and integration tools. So I think we've all had a migration that takes a long, long time. No one outside of the tech department understands why it's taken that long, because they don't understand why it's hard. And increasingly, as we're doing things like moving across platforms, tearing environments down, creating new things, we're finding that people are needing to migrate a hell of a lot more. We also have database automation and management tools, so running through them, keeping everything going, especially as things become more complex. And the database monitoring and performance tools. What's going on? Have you found out problems before your end user has found out about them? And where is actually the problem living the more complex your environment gets? And then finally, the age-old DBA challenge, query optimization solutions. Can you make that query better? Probably yes. And when someone comes to you and says, hey, how do I make this query better? Do you want to spend the time to solve it yourself, or do you want to give them the help to educate them and help them support you in your job? Those last two are going to be the focus of our presentation today. We're going to be looking at a monitoring and performance tool, which can help with things like finding problems, solving them, and hopefully keeping them from happening again, ever again. But I can't promise that one.
Yeah, no kidding. So we've got options. There's a lot of things we can do with monitoring. Obviously, we can grow them ourselves. We can build them. I mean, I'd be happy to show you every step that you have to do in order to build a monitoring tool. It's not hard. It's easy to understand. And there's no magic sauce. There's the same tools that we use are the tools that you use. So you can build them yourself. You've got plenty of spare time. You're not doing anything else. You can work on this. So that's one option. Another is, there are native tools. They do work. They are good. But, there's the one for Postgres, and then there's the one for Azure, and then there's the one for AWS, and then there's the one for RDS, and then there's the one for Aurora, and then there's the one for, SQL Server that we're running locally, and they all communicate with each other just fine. Oh, wait. Yeah, it's that other thing. They don't.
Yeah.
So the solution for a lot of people, rightly so, is third party. And it's not that you can't do this yourself or that the tools aren't available. It's that what you're doing, frankly, is buying time. Because growing it yourself or trying to marry the native tools that aren't going to marry at all spends a lot of your time. And the time is one resource that you just cannot create. So you need to be able to get it back somewhere. And that's where third-party monitoring comes in. I mean, it's really that simple. Again, it's not that you can't do it, you can. But it's time. And so you have to get that back from someplace. So,
who wants to see a solution? Guess what we have? Welcome to our sponsor session on Redgate Monitor. It's an excellent monitoring tool that does cover all of those platforms that you have to spend 0 hours maintaining, except for updating it and making sure that you have the latest version. But that's fine. That can be automated. That's not nearly as hard as running and maintaining this yourself. I mean, who has had someone build a great internal tool in their environment and then leave the company, and then someone else has to figure out how to run and maintain it and reverse engineer it, and now it is just as hard as if you didn't have that tool in the first place. So our solution for that is Redgate Monitor. It's a multi-database, multi-platform monitoring solution with an ingeniously simple philosophy. So the goal is to make it really easy for you so you can stop doing stuff that's not as important. We tell you when things are important, and you can spend your time doing things that aren't just sitting there waiting for something to go wrong. And the really excellent thing about this is as we become more and more cross-database, multi-platform, etc., as you can see here, all of these cards look the same. They're super zoomed in. Can you make them smaller?
I can.
You can. Who'd have thought? As you can see here, we have a bunch of different cards, and all of these cards represent an instance. And all of those instances live different places. Some of these are Azure databases. We have some Postgres on here, Postgres running on Linux, classic SQL Server, on-prem, on the cloud. We've got a bunch of different stuff going on, but all of these cards look exactly the same. That's because when you log in the morning, you say, how's my estate going? You shouldn't be going to a bunch of different screens across a bunch of different platforms and trying to find out what's going wrong where and what should I prioritize. Instead, you have the health of your entire estate on a single overview page, so that then you can say, sort it by severity and say, anything that's red, let's hit that first. That's probably something I need to deal with right away. And those color coding, that health indicator for your entire estate, is based on metrics that are unique to each database and platform type. So it's not, let's see, who has the most weights, or, oh, well, there's this one metric, and I normally check on it for my on-prem. It doesn't really matter with VMware. Instead, we've taken that, and we've made it so each individual one has its health displayed, so that across your entire estate, you can prioritize and focus on the things that are actually wrong. That doesn't mean that we're skimping on the details, however. Grant's going to walk you through how, when we drill down, we make sure you get the metrics that are right for the database and platform type that you need.
Cool. So a couple of things here. I don't have my glasses with me.
I can read anything you need for you, okay?
I'd like to point out, this is, you can see this is SQL Server, right? And it's SQL Server in an availability group. And here's SQL Server in Windows. And if we take a look down here, we've got SQL Server on Azure. We've got SQL Server in a pool. We've got managed instance. So we've got all of the SQL Server flavors. Further, I know we're kind of Microsoft focused here, but we've also got SQL Server running in RDS. And this is all supported by the tool, so you can do all of these different platforms. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this is monitor.redgate.com. You can go in here and poke around at it anytime you want to. I'm demoing it in the same way that you can play with it yourself. I'm not doing anything special. This is everything that you can do. So go in there and play with it anytime you want to. Now, let me show you just a couple of details. I would love to dig in and spend about an hour playing around, but we've only got about 5 minutes left. Oh, no, we got 8 minutes left. Okay, cool. We can get a bit more. All right, hang on. So if we take a look at, let's pick, where is it? Staging 2. That's my favorite. So we drill in to a particular server. That server is going to come up, and we're going to get a little sparkline graph. It's going to show us some cool stuff. When we've had spikes on weights, when we've had spikes on CPU, overall what's going on. We've also got the ability to look at a period of time, and we can define the period of time that we want to look at, rearranging the graph here. We can see the alerts that have happened, so we've got a lot of detail available. Let me just zoom in on that a little bit. Whoever's managing this one, I don't like, because they've got deadlocks as an informational, as opposed to, oh my God, my hair's on fire. But okay, that's fine. Including, we've also got the ability to add additions from our Flyway tool so that we can capture when deployments have occurred. So you can actually correlate problems on the server, like say, I don't know, a big giant spike in weights to a deployment. So changes to your environment can be reflected as well. Now, on top of that, once we've defined a range that we're looking at, we can take a look at queries. So we can see our top queries, or we can track individual queries. If you know you've got a problem query, we've got one that's just been giving us a hard time. I was going to say another word, I won't, but it's giving us a hard time. And so we need to get in there and get more details out of it. Well, okay, we're going to track that query, and we're going to be able to look at that query and get a lot more details. We've got suggestions, like, for example, Monitor has found a problem with this. For this query, they're using select star. That is evil. No, kidding. It's not that big a deal. But it is a common code smell, and we're identifying that for you so you can go in there and take a look at it if you need to. Sorry, this thing's moving. There we go. This is a query of a larger fragment. You can get that. You can get the execution plan. So we've really got a lot of stuff going on. If we close that out, we also down here have got additional details such as the performance of this individual query over time and recompile events. When did this query recompile? And so there's a lot of information there, and it's all that detail on a given query. You can also get to, let's get back here, you can get to top weights, and if you're looking at top weights, from the weights, if we drill in, I'm going to pick a bad one, I know it. Yeah, no information to display. I knew that. I always knew that. Let's try CX Packet. No, okay. Anyway, inside there are queries. So it gets you back to the same detail page, and off you go. So that's SQL Server. It's a single pane of glass. If you're looking at SQL Server on RDS, it looks like this. If you're looking at SQL Server in a VM, it looks like this. If you're looking at SQL Server on hardware, it looks like this. If you're looking at SQL Server in managed instance, yes, it looks like that. There you go. Thank you. It's one view into the thing. Now, there's a whole bunch of other details. I'm not going to get into them all. Instead, I want to go back to the overview page for a second. Now, we've mentioned Postgres, so I'm going to go down here and show you. We've got Postgres running in a Linux machine, and we've got Postgres running on Aurora. We also support RDS. We also support Postgres on Azure. We've got full support on Postgres going on right now, and there's more coming. We've got a lot of development going on in Postgres, as well as other database platforms that you can probably guess at. I'm not going to get into details because I don't want to get in trouble.
Come to the booth if you want to learn more.
But what I want to show you on the Postgres thing is when I click into that, does this look at all familiar to anyone? Doesn't it look very similar to the last screens that we were just looking at? It does. Now, it's different. It's different because Postgres is different. You can't do the exact same thing in Postgres that you're doing in SQL Server because it has different measures. Heck, it has different language. You don't talk about execution plans, you talk about explain plans. Completely different. Same idea, but a different language. But we support that different language. We're capturing the same kinds of errors. You can see here, I've got a long-running query. So we've got that going on, and the memory and throughput are all the same. And then, hey, look at that. There's the top queries screen. Now, it doesn't have weights. Why does it not have weights? Well, Postgres doesn't have weights as a monitoring mechanism. So we haven't put that in there because it's just not something you can pull out of Postgres. However, we've got the queries, and so I'm going to pick a random one. I have no idea what's in here. I knew what was in that last query. But so we get the query details. We can see that. Now, here's one example where our language has to get fixed. Laura, since you're in charge. However, what we're doing is we are exposing Postgres explain plans in a graphical format. So this, when you look at it, looks again similar to the execution plan that we show you in SQL Server. So this really, the idea here is that we're offering up not simply a single pane of glass and not simply one way to walk through the information, but also a similar way to walk through the information so that it simplifies your job. You have to know a little bit less in order to get the information you need, yet still have all the tools at your fingertips so you know what's going on. You can see when you've got recompiles and all the rest of that stuff. And it is very much focused on Postgres. We include things like the vacuum. For anybody who's Postgres people out there in the audience, 3, 4, 5, 6, cool, several. Yeah, we all love the vacuum. Actually, I do. I've got a iHeart Auto vacuum sticker right here on my laptop. But it is one of the challenging areas of Postgres, but now you've got another tool to get into there easily and see what's going on. Yet, it looks similar to what's going on in SQL Server, and you're able to monitor the cloud, on-prem, VMs, all in a similar fashion. And that's really about it for Monitor. I mean, it's short, but really cool. 1 minute left. 1 minute, we can do one question.
Mm-hmm. It has to be a good question, though.
Does anybody have a question? Otherwise, I'll give you a minute back. Oh, go ahead. Can you monitor anything else but databases? No, we are pretty focused on databases. I can go into a very long spiel as to why, but probably we ought to do that back at the booth. Pardon? A really short answer, a lot more detail and a lot less broad stuff. That's the shortest way I could answer that question. Well, other than that, we're done.
We're done.
We're out of time. I'm so sorry.
Come to the
I would
booth
love to answer
afterwards.
more stuff. Come to the booth.
Thank you
We'll
so
answer
much,
anything you want to
everyone.
know.
Yeah.
Thank you.